Hi, and welcome everybody to another edition of the Winner's Circle Sports Betting Podcast. My name is Ross Benjamin of RBWins.com. It's Monday, November the 14th. And as always on Mondays, I'm joined by Mr. Doug Upstone of DocSports.com, one of the finest handicappers you'll find anywhere, not only in the country, but globally as well. And Doug, I hope you had a better weekend than I had picking games.
Well, Ross, I don't know if I did or didn't, but by what you're saying, things didn't go well for you. And on Sunday, I shared your how you're feeling. And in fact, if I end up being a little prickly today, well, I haven't gotten over it yet. Okay, and I know you're supposed to let this stuff go, right? We sit here and preach about it. Okay,
Yes.
but sometimes you get those certain games or certain situations where it just kind of gets a little farther into you. And so that's kind of where I'm at today. Basically 24 hours later.
Elaborate for us,
Well,
Doug.
no. I'll just say this. Yesterday was a unique day. First time it's ever happened in the NFL, where three teams in the same division were down by 14 or more points in the second half of their games, and they all ended up winning.
Yeah.
That's never happened before in the NFL.
Okay. NFC North, yep.
NFC North, and obviously the odd part within that context is the one team that lost in the division lost to a division opponent. So with Detroit beating Chicago. So anyways, I'm just going to say this: Chicago had the game won. Okay. And I was sitting there watching it in the fourth quarter with a 14-point lead. And I thought the only way that I lose this game is they beat themselves. Yeah. Well, guess what? They beat themselves like they had a club, okay, with stupid plays, stupid penalties, coaching errors. I mean, it was a joke. And I know somebody else who also had that as one of their top plays at Docs. And we commiserated for about 15 minutes afterwards our misfortune, from that standpoint.
Yeah, you would think with Chicago at a 14-point lead they had? Yeah,
that's correct.
14-point lead in the second half with the running game is going as good as it's been all year long, and specifically so over the last 5 or 6 weeks against a team who can't stop the run like Detroit, that it played right into their hands with that lead, but apparently not.
No, well, and just to update what you just said, it was not just the second half; it was the fourth quarter. That's the even other worse. Element, even worse. And then the other element to that is somebody on Twitter sent me this. They said, well, it was the Bears. What did you expect? And I said, they're playing the Lions.
What
would you expect?
Yeah,
and so that was Detroit's first road victory in 13 games. Okay, so that's something else. All streaks must end. It just didn't have to end.
Unfortunately,
it ended. Anyway, so enough about that. Hey, the good news, though, college football, at least for me, on Saturday, 6-unit best bet, Penn State, no doubt. So that was good.
Yeah, they trounced Maryland, and that line went from 12.5 to 10. It was awful suspicious as to why, but it goes to show you can't always be a line reader in this business. Sometimes you have to go with your intuition. You have to go with your eye test. And I'm sure you had much more to back that play just other than that. But they shut out a very, very good Maryland offense. Say what you will about Maryland. They have been able to put up some points and move the football on a consistent basis all year long. Their defense has been their biggest detriment. But kudos to Penn State after coming off that tough loss the week before. Coming up with an effort like that. So congratulations, Doug. I tell people when I win, I beat on my chest, but as well as I do, talking to Doug and the viewers, I'm transparent when I lose. And I had a horrible weekend. There's no two ways about it. I went 1-4 on Saturday in college football, 2-4 in the NFL yesterday. So you wipe the slate clean, you move on, and always, like I like to say, I've been resilient my whole career, and I'll continue to be, and so has Doug. Even though he had a bad day in the NFL, he did have a great day in college football, hit a big play there, and we always bounce back off a bad day, and you better jump on our backs when we're hot as well. Anyway, Doug, speaking of hot, the handicappers here continue to roll on the on the show, and we have 2 free picks in college football for today. And Doug is going to take care of the Texas and Kansas game for us. And I'm going to be taking a look at the Kansas State, West Virginia. Folks, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, I have no idea why you're watching this. We're winning at an over 63% clip for the last 6 weeks. You're dealing with some of the top handicappers in the country, documented. It's absolutely free, no hidden agenda. Hover over that OSTA icon at the bottom right-hand corner of the page. Subscribe button will come up. Hit subscribe. Hit the notification bell within your settings, and you'll be alerted upon any of our Winner's Circle sports betting podcasts being published on this channel. All right, Doug, any other thoughts you'd like to share with the viewers before we get into our free picks?
Sure. I saw something over the weekend I like, and this kind of goes exactly with my mood. Okay, with what's going on. As you know, Texas A&M lost to Auburn. Okay, 13-10 as a 1.5 point underdog. So that leaves Texas A&M at 3-7 so far. So for the first time ever in the history of recruiting, the school that had the #1 recruiting class from the spring, the following year to have a losing record. Okay, Texas A&M, congratulations. Okay, on that one. And then the other thing that goes along with that, did you know, Ross, that Notre Dame has twice as many blocked punts this year as Texas A&M has touchdowns? I mean, I'm not touchdowns, wins.
Yes. Yes.
So, so I like
actually a little over. It's a little over. What are they?
Yeah, well, 7-3. Right.
Yeah.
Notre Dame has 7 block punts. Yeah. Texas A&M has 3 victories.
Yeah.
Just trying to add a little enjoyment to everyone's life, bringing that cheer. With the holidays, especially just around the corner.
What do you? Just out of curiosity, I'd be curious to hear your opinion on why you think that occurred this year at A&M. Is it Jimbo Fisher? Is it a recruiting class that may be too high on their horse, or are they a recruiting class that was overrated, or a combination of all the above?
I specifically, first of all, anytime you have a #1 recruiting class, if that's what your basis of the team is going forward, that's your team is then overrated. Okay, just because of that. Because Texas A&M, the last couple of years, they've been okay, but they haven't been great. So now they've had a lot of injuries this year. So a lot of these freshmen have been thrown into the fire. Okay, and so I think 20 of them have played. Have played, and I think 10 of them start, or some number in that range. So I mean, that's just asking for trouble in a conference like the SEC. So that's part one. I think Jimbo Fisher is also to blame, that his previous recruiting classes offered almost nothing, even with the players that are there, and he came into this season without a quarterback, and look what happened. No quarterback, no points. And it turns out that defense was vastly overrated, literally almost from the first game. So I think it's just to borrow Bill Parcells, your record is what you are. Okay. Yeah. And so I think that's the case in their situation. They're just not a very good football team who ended up being overrated. And he put himself in a bad position. And by the way, not that they're going to do this, but because it's too much money. But if you wanted to buy Jimbo Fisher at the end of the season, it would only cost Texas A&M $84 million.
Yeah, they could afford it with 105,000 every game in attendance. So,
right.
But I don't think they'll go there. I think they'll ride this out. Look, if you had a #1 recruiting class, like you said, Doug, if your expectations are based on the players solely that you're bringing in, then you're asking for trouble. Unfortunately for them, that wasn't the case to start with, but it was because of what Doug just touched upon, with the injuries and such. And let's not forget, folks, this team was rated #5 in the preseason poll. So again, there seems to be Texas A&M always seems to get a high rating. Miami of Florida, I don't know what's going on there, but that seems like every year they have a top 10 recruiting class. Every year they find themselves in the top 20 in the preseason polls, and every year they barely or don't make a bowl game. It's It's troublesome. Now, having said that, I think Mario Cristobal needs a year or two. He inherited what he has now. This guy has proven to be one of the best recruiters in the country. I think he'll continue to be in South Florida, and he's got South Florida ties too. That's where he's from. He played at the University of Miami. But Doug, I don't know. I'm not sold on him as in regards to being an X and O guy. I don't think he's a good on-field manager. I don't think he's that great a coach. I think he's only as good a coach as the talent he brings in, and he will bring in some talent there. So, and he lost his starting quarterback too for a few games this year, which didn't help his cause. Anyway, let's get to the free picks at hand. Doug, you're going to talk about Texas and Kansas. That game goes at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on Saturday. Texas right now is a 9-point favorite. The total 64. Do they rebound or not after losing at home to TCU?
Well, Ross, we're talking about two teams that are 6-4 coming in. This game's going to be on FS1 in that 3:30 window Eastern time. And I'm looking at this game with the 6-4 records. I mean, somebody is going to be in position to be either to finish 7-5 or 6-6. Whoever ends up losing this one. Now, last week on the show, Ross, I talked about that. I said Texas was not to be trusted. I said that on Monday, and as we saw all week, the line stayed at right around 7, and a lot of people were, still high on Texas, for the week and everything else. I'm not picking on you or anything like that.
No, I know that. I know that.
It's one of those things, and so I have this analogy that most people have seen, they might not remember. So if you remember Charlie Brown and Lucy, okay, don't ask me which specific episode it was, because I don't recall either. But there was always the one where Charlie Brown was coming up, was going to kick the ball, and right before he's about to kick it, Lucy pulls it away. Okay, and it just happened time after time. And so, but he always ended up trusting her because what she said, he ended up believing. Well, this is exactly how I feel about Texas, is that people keep saying Texas is good. They got the talent. They're just one game away from turning it around and this and that. Well, guess what? They pulled a Lucy again. And everybody, unfortunately, was right there. They backed Texas, or too many people backed Texas, and they ended up, screwing everybody again. Now, like I say, going into this one, Quinn Ewers, I don't think he's been the same quarterback since he's come back from his injury. Okay. He's not as confident. That's clear. Besides the bad haircut, that's another story. That has nothing to do with how he plays. But last week, 17 for 39, average 4.4 yards per attempt on his completion. Bijan Robinson, I still haven't figured this one out. 29 yards rushing, bad enough. Only 12 attempts. Yeah. And he didn't even have a catch. How can they run their offense without using their absolute best player? Mystery to me. Okay. I mean, it's not like TCU was a juggernaut on defense here, Ross, but no. be that as it may. Longhorns, they're gonna be not facing a defense or a team anywhere close to that when they go to Lawrence, okay, this week. They're gonna be able to move the ball, they're gonna score points, and they're gonna face a Kansas team that has lost 4 of its last 5 games, and the only victory that they had in that time period when they faced an injury-riddled Oklahoma State bunch at home. Now, some people have blamed the losses by not having Jalen Daniels at quarterback for this decline. But if you've watched Kansas, Jason Bean has played well. Now, has he thrown a couple more interceptions on the season? Yes. Is he the runner that Jalen Daniels is? No. But if you look at the stats, they're not that far apart. What really has changed for Kansas that people weren't paying attention, that their defense wasn't very good. Now, they won their first 5 games. I'm going to throw out the first game against Tennessee Tech. So in the next 4 opponents whom they beat, they gave up 27.5 points per game. Since that time, in the last 5 games, of which they've lost 4, they've given up 36.8 points per game. And Ross, you and I aren't the smartest guys in the world, but you know what? If it's 36.8, that means you got to score 37 to win. Okay. So I think we got that under control. So Monday we have a report that Daniels, according to Coach Lance Leopold, is a possibility to play this week. He has full range of motion. Everything should be good. You mentioned what the point spread is here. Again, Texas, talent-wise, superior. Okay. They should win by a couple of touchdowns. But you know what? Kansas has been a plucky team at home. These guys come to play. I think they're 4-1 against the spread. And unless they commit too many turnovers, I think they'll keep this game in a 3 to 7 point range. 3 to 10 point range right to the end. And Coach Leopold teams are 9-1 against the spread at home against teams with winning records. I'm going to say rock chalk Jayhawk plus the 9 over Texas this Saturday.
Good for you. Kansas plus the 9 over Texas on Saturday. I didn't even take a look at that total of 64, folks. This shapes up, has all the earmarks, I should say, of a very high-scoring, entertaining game. Doug mentioned Kansas defense, inability to stop people in recent games, but their offense has continued to click. In Texas, if you watch them all year, there's a lot of offensive capability there to put up some points. That wasn't the issue against TCU, was their defense again. And you know what? We'll see what happens. So keep an eye on that total as well. But Doug, more specifically, he likes the Kansas Jayhawks plus the 9 at home over Texas, and I can't disagree with him whatsoever. I'm going to take a look at the K-State and West Virginia game, Kansas State, that is. 2 p.m. Eastern time kickoff from Morgantown, West Virginia. Kansas State right now is 7.5-point road favorite. They're coming off a 31-3 win at Baylor last week as a 2.5-point underdog. That improved their season record to 7-3. Very good record for Kansas State, as we discussed on last week's or 2 weeks ago, how well coached this team is, how fundamentally sound. They don't wow you. They're not flashy. Don't seem like they're explosive offensively, but boy, oh boy, these guys just get the job done. West Virginia, on the other hand, coming off a 23-20 home win versus Oklahoma. They did so as an 8.5-point underdog. They're now 4-6 on the season, and they need to beat Kansas State and Oklahoma State in their last 2 to become bowl eligible. Neil Brown's job, he's said to be on the hot seat. So there should be some urgency there in Morgantown on Saturday, and they catch Kansas State off that big win against Baylor. They're coming off a confidence-building win against Oklahoma, although we know Oklahoma is not the same old Oklahoma we've seen in recent years. However, this is a West Virginia team, too, playing with revenge stemming from a 34-17 loss at Kansas State last year. That stopped a 5-game Mountaineers win streak over Kansas State. Look for them to get back on track this week, at least to stay inside the number. And West Virginia, since 2020, 4-1 straight up, and ATS is a home underdog when playing with revenge. So they're in that exact situation this coming Saturday. And a college football betting angle for you. Anytime you have a conference underdog of 10 or less, like West Virginia, and they're coming off a conference home underdog of 2 or greater, upset win by 9 points or less. Again, West Virginia coming off that 23-20 win against Oklahoma as an 8.5-point underdog. And that conference home underdog has a losing record. I already mentioned they're 4-6, and they're facing an opponent with a win percentage of 727 or less. And Kansas State right now is at 700. Those conference home underdogs, 20-4 against the spread since 1983. I'm going to take a shot here, Doug, with the West Virginia Mountaineers plus a 7.5 at home against Kansas State.
I think that's a good call. I like that system, by the way, too. And now our good friend, the Mark Lawrence, who we both know very well. Yeah. I always liked that he always called West Virginia the Hillbillies. I always got a chuckle out of that when he went to use the nickname from that standpoint. Not saying anything derogatory, just it was his way of making fun of a situation. So hey, it's good stuff. But no, so yeah, I like West Virginia here. I think you have something on there, Ross. Could be an interesting game and stuff like that. And then what time was that game? Did you say again?
That game goes at 2 Eastern, which is an odd time.
Eastern.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
there we go. Okay.
All right. So I'm taking the West Virginia Hillbillies plus the 7.5 over Kansas State, and Doug Upstone, he likes Kansas plus 9 at home against Texas on Saturday. Doug, tell the folks what you may have coming up this week, how you've been doing, not only in college football and the NFL, but in all sports.
Well, I'm happy to say that it hasn't been a great hockey season to start, but coming off a couple of victories over the weekend. So I got my fingers crossed that things are going to start going my way and get some good action going there. Again, not everybody's doing this, but yesterday, Western Finals, the CFL, easy winner with Winnipeg, sets them to the championship game, going after their third straight Grey Cup. And I've won the Grey Cup championship selection 4 years in a row, Ross. So I'm looking to make it 5 in a row. And NBA continues to rock. Okay, 50-23 now.
Wow.
They had a 5-unit best bet on Sunday on Sacramento, plus the 5 didn't need one of them as they beat and upset Golden State again in that contest. So good stuff there. 50-23. It's $90 or $8,500 worth of profit in those regular season games over the last 2 seasons. So looking forward to more hot action, Ross, coming up this weekend at the Doug Upstone page at Doc Sports. Ross, I know you got something to say too. Why don't you have at it?
I don't have as much to say as you do, after this weekend, but that's okay.
Well, not everybody wants to talk about the CFL, Ross.
Well, again, you know what a rouge is, right?
Yes, I do. You told me.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm brushing you up a little bit.
And speaking of rouge, that's also brushing things up too. Just so you know.
Anyway, you could find me at rbwins.com, folks. My NBA is 43-31 with my last 74 going back to last year. College basketball 10-star top plays since the start of last year, 58%. My NFL 10-star top plays, even though I just lost yesterday, a terrible pick on the Cleveland Browns as they didn't show up against Miami. And still 9-2 on the year with my NFL 10-star top plays. And dating back to last year, my NFL picks 38-28 with my last 66, somewhere around 58%. So again, despite the losing week, still doing very well in the NFL, the NBA, college basketball 10-star top plays. I haven't released one yet, but keep an eye on that, folks, still early. And for Doug Upstone and Ross Benjamin, again, folks, you can find Doug Upstone at docsports.com, myself at rbwins.com. We like to wish each and every one of you nothing but the very best. Good luck and God bless, folks.